With each, I told them if they ever ran, I would support them. I've held fundraisers for both. Like I say, I think either one would make a terrific president. I don't measure whether they'd be good for the economy as to whether the stock market would go up the next day. The real question is whether they'd be good for the economy that develops, so I'm supporting both of them. I'm sort of a political bigamist at the moment. You may have noticed that American Express came out and said they sort of noticed a real change early in December. You could see something happening in December. Softening, absolutely. I have no idea. I mean, it could be pretty bad, but we always come out of it. John Stumpf of Wells Fargo, I think, said it best. He said he really was kind of puzzled why the banks came up with new ways to lose money when the old ways were working so well. Wall Street tends to sell whatever people will buy. I mean, nothing new about that. But in this case, they drank their own Kool-Aid. They've suffered themselves as well as having their customers suffer in this case. But there have been a lot of things go on that in retrospect are going to look like big mistakes. Do these stocks have names? Well, if they do, someplace between my brain and my mouth there's a shut-off valve, so it never comes out. It was 23,000 plus contracts that were unwound over a 4-year or so period. And the interesting thing about it is we unwound those in a very benign period. I mean, we were not under stress. We had lots of money. I mean, it was not like a forced liquidation, but we ran into an expensive process in unwinding these. We still lost over $400 million in unwinding that position. At Solomon, they used to call them, this is many years ago, they used to call them toxic waste, but that's where the money was. And those can get quite explosive. There's a place for bond insurance in this world. It can be dangerous. I mean, look at the people that are in it now. I mean, they found out some dangers from things that they didn't think were dangerous. I think it was Mae West that said I was Snow White, but I drifted. Well, we're not going to drift. Well, I do not think I want to put a bunch of money in with people who are assessing risk who have made the assessments of risk that they have in the past. Marmon that we're buying as a significant operation in Canada. We lease many of the cranes that are being used, for example, in the tar sand. Lots of businesses here, and many of our American companies that are based in the United States have operations here, including, I might mention, Business Wire, which is kicking off right now. Yeah, we owned Canadian dollars. We made several $100 million, as I remember, off Canadian dollars. Wish I'd kept them. I think those Canadian dollars are very likely, even from this level, to be worth more in terms of the U.S. dollar 5 or 10 years from now than they are today. I think it's more likely that we will continue our present policies in the U.S. and that the Canadian dollar over time would strengthen even further. You know, they say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting to get a different result. We are doing the same things that have caused the dollar to weaken. And if we continue to do them, I think it's reasonable to expect the dollar will weaken over time. But we have this huge thirst for foreign goods, and we have the IOUs with which to pay for it. One of the things we try very hard to do at Berkshire is to stay within what I call our circle of competence. The most important thing in investing is not how big your circle of competence is. It's on understanding where the perimeter is so that you don't get outside of it. Some of the big banks made a big mistake by buying something they didn't understand or not getting it off their books once they created it. They can handle it. They're paying a price for it, and they have to sell a lot of stock at prices they don't like selling stock at. And somebody has to bear those losses. Now, is it better for the XYZ bank to bear it, or is it better to socialize it for the American public? I'd rather have the XYZ bank pay for it. So Mr. Greenspan, Mr. Bernanke, you name it, they do not have the power to curb human folly. To interfere with the market in such a way as to tell people what they can do and have a planned society, I don't think they have worked out very well. So with all our bumps and starts and stops over the years, the market systems work pretty well for the United States. Canadian National's got probably the best record in, any railroad that I know of. It's a very efficient way of moving goods, and as the price of oil goes up, it becomes more efficient relative to trucking. So it's got a lot of things going for it that will make it a decent business, which have now been recognized pretty much in the market. It does not have any incredible future. Tar sands are probably as big a potential source of production 15, 20 years from now. It would surprise me if the world wasn't wanting to use 100 million barrels a day in 15 or 20 years. The tar sands are the biggest single possibility to fill the gap that looks like it will otherwise develop in the next decade or two. The best thing to do is have wonderful businesses that don't take much capital, but ride along and get to sell in current terms. That's the best asset you can have. But lately, commodities have been pretty good. I'm a huge bull on the American economy.